Maitland's Hut is still under construction. In June last year, Council began its ambitious project to transform the city centre, but 10 months on and the levy is looking far from finished. Chris McGregor from the Maitland Business Chamber says while delays have been frustrating, the city's revitalisation was long overdue.
I think it's short-term pain, long-term gain. Looking at it as a long-term approach to say, great, this will bring people back into the city.
The ongoing construction has taken its toll on Christine Bishop and her small clothing store.
To come into it, I did expect it to be a little bit quiet, but I thought the works would have been finished by now and that business would have picked up.
Like many others, she's holding on, but only just.
If I didn't work another job to cover it, I'd definitely be having to close my doors.
Newcomer Tracy Williams has only been in town for 5 weeks, but she's hopeful it'll all be worth it.
With my shop having both access to the river and the mall or the levee, I think it'll be great.
Almost $10 million has already been secured for stage 2 of the levee, which will connect the mall to Maitland's riverbank. And council is expected to sign off on the project when it meets next week.
Once it's all done and we have this great mall that's connected to our great river, this will be a great place for the people of not only Maitland but of the Hunter to come and enjoy our great city.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
It's a piece of paradise in inner city Newcastle, with breathtaking views of the harbour and plenty of open space for recreation. But council says it's now time Foreshore Park is upgraded to ensure it can be enjoyed well into the future.
We want to make sure it's a destination for families to come and to attract events and to attract visitors to the area, but also cater for the needs of a growing inner city population.
Council believes a cafe or kiosk is one way to do that. It's also proposing an upgrade to the playground to a regional level facility, meaning it would cater to all ages and abilities, something that's been given the thumbs up by parents.
To have a few more facilities here for a variety of ages would be really good because we've got a 2-year-old and a 9-year-old.
Having people come from afar would, really attract a lot of people.
Also in Council's plans, the final piece of the pathway puzzle. It includes widening the section between Nobbies and Throsby Creek.
When this work will be done, we'll actually have a link all the way from Islington and Throsby Park, all the way through down around Nobbies, the headland and through to Merriweather. So that's a great facility for public use and also for visitors.
Residents have until May 4 to comment on the plan. Renee Feder, NBN News.
We've been in these premises for 19 years now, so we're all attached to them, but we're very excited to be moving to our new premises, which are just across the road.
I got scared when he done the brakes.
And it was more about awareness, I suppose, and raising money today too. So just getting it out there and, the interest of why there were people in the park in colours, and so, it gets the neighbourhood talking.
He's the trainer of a Melbourne Cup winner looking to add the Sydney Cup to his list. Chris Lee's high-profile stayer was attracting plenty of attention. It was the John O'Shea-trained Hartnell leading the way early, but as the home straight approached, the rest of the field closed in. In the end, it was a two-horse race, with Protectionist nowhere to be seen. The Chris Waller-trained Grand Marshal winning in a photo finish. In the Queen Elizabeth Stakes, Lucia Valentina struggled to make a mark as Criterion took out the $4 million feature. Earlier in the day, Lees nearly had some joy in the Provincial Championship final, Electric Power coming home strong, finishing second 1 length behind Sure and Fast. Michael Kane, NBN News.
Normally, King Street is buzzing with the weekend breakfast crowd. But today, it was the sound of 9 London plane trees being cut down. It's part of Newcastle Council's urban renewal project, which sees the replacement of footpaths, curbs and gutters.
It's a sad, sad day for Newcastle because they're denuding a city that is in desperate need of shade.
I think the reality is the trees really made this area. You know, I mean, that's part of the charm of this area, that it's sort of an inner city vibe, but it's still got that leafiness to it.
I think it's great. The leaves mess up all the gutters, mess up everything.
The Lord Mayor says the street will not stay bare for long.
They are being replaced with the most appropriate species, an ornamental pear. We've already done the first section of King Street, and this is the next 2 sections.
Businesses along King Street were consulted and prepared, but for the owner of Soul Foods on Hunter Street, it was a complete surprise.
Look at this, it's devastating to me. With notice, I may have closed today and opened tomorrow, but I didn't know. So I brought all my staff in, had to pay them for the minimum time at double time and a half. Like, it's just ridiculous.
I understand it would be an inconvenience to some businesses, and there's nothing more that we can do about that as a council besides take on that feedback and make sure next time we do work we consult maybe a little bit more widely.
Work to replace the footpath will commence this month. Meredith Gibbs, NBN News.
The kids love getting on the fire truck. They love going into the police van. It's really good because what they learn is that the police and the people who are in those emergency services are there to look after them.
Picked yesterday, here today, and it seems more and more Novocastrians want to know where their food comes from. 3 years ago, the Newcastle City Farmers Market pedestrian audit found 4,200 people came through the gates on average. Now that number's increased to 6,500 during a 5-hour period.
At least at the farmer's market, well, you know, you can ask the farmer, well, he's going to tell you, well, it's coming from my paddock.
Central Coast farmer Gary Cosgrove has been selling produce here since the market started and says he's benefited from the steady increase. As for his theory on its growth in popularity,
quite a lot of our customers are actually saying that they just don't want to shop at the supermarket, and they're coming here to get what they want.
While East Maitland farmer Matthew Dennis says more and more Australians also want to support local growers.
People know that it's grown locally and it's fresh. Like, we pick all our produce the day before and it's fresh.
Next month, the market will celebrate 10 years at the showgrounds site, where it started as a monthly event. Now, farmers set up to sell every Sunday and since October, every Wednesday evening.
Let's see how far we can take farmers markets beyond just that monthly situation.
You're not going to get better than fresh.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
He's still got some things he's learning and getting used to. It's his first time to South Australia for a start. It's just a good, really hard competitor. He can take an overhead mark, but he loves to tackle. He put some enormous pressure on that last quarter.
A special honour for Josh Piddington playing his 200th game as a Magic Man. The skipper made an immediate impact. But Hamilton couldn't find a way through. Peter Haynes set up Cale Bradbury, but Danny Ireland did enough to hold out the home side. Olympics' Reece Cooper went close to opening the scoring, denied by the outstretched arm of Nathan Archbold. Broadmeadow was finding space, but time after time the attacks lacked polish. Approaching half-time, Hamilton looked set to hit the front as Matthew Swan teed up Brown for a tap-in, but the referee ruled offside without the help of his assistant. The second half started with Archbold and Brown involved in a heavy collision. Olympic recovered as Kane Goodchild set up Jason Korotkich. Substitute Chris Berlin found himself with room to move, but his shot didn't trouble Ireland. Reece Tippett also made his presence felt, but Tom Davies ensured his shot sailed over the bar. At Adamstown, former Scottish international Gary Kenneth made his debut as Rosebud hosted Western. Adamstown keeper Scott Carter showed no fear, charging out of his box to shut down a Bear attack. Rosebud went close to breaking the deadlock as Guy Bates beat Tim Pratt. Bates showed fancy footwork a few minutes later, but couldn't produce a stinging shot. His next effort was better, but again he only found the woodwork. Western's Jason Calburn tried the audacious, but 0-0 was how it stayed.
Tomorrow is Carly McBride's 32nd birthday, but instead of planning a celebration, her father Steve is searching for answers. His precious daughter has been missing since September 30.
It was like Carly just disappeared into thin air, and it's been heartbreaking for the entire family.
Posts on the Find Carly McBride Facebook page are getting more than 1 million hits. Mr. McBride says he just wants to know what happened.
Carly was beautiful, a lovely, outgoing girl. No one could have wanted anything like this to happen to Carly.
Carly McBride was last seen here on Kalgaroo Avenue, where she was visiting her daughter at her ex-partner's home after her current partner had dropped her off.
She was, as reported, trying to make her way to McDonald's, but we have been unable to establish where her movements were after that.
Police are treating her disappearance as homicide and certainly aren't scaling back investigations. Several searches have been done around Muswellbrook, with more planned in the coming weeks, and lines of inquiry have been followed interstate and overseas.
At this stage there's a number of persons of interest that we're looking at, and we've spoken to a number of people. We'll continue our inquiries with those people.
Any information, no matter how small, please come forward.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
Dilapidated and an eyesore, the former Swansea Bowling Club still stands more than 2 years after last drinks were called. Tonight, Council will consider plans to rezone the land for medium-density housing.
The recommendation states is that Council should be considering the impact of tidal inundation and potential future sea level rise at this particular rezoning stage.
It's owned by the Belmont 16 Sailing Club, which says studies into flood issues would be a waste of time at this stage.
We believe that those studies should take place at the development application stage. At this point in time, all we're looking to do is get it rezoned.
It says there aren't any concrete plans for its future.
Well, at this point in time, it's a site that's surplus to our needs. We're not property developers. We're in the hospitality business. We haven't made a firm decision on what we'd do with the site. We'd likely either sell it or look to do some joint venture.
Meantime, Lake Macquarie Mayor Jodie Harrison has announced she won't contest the next mayoral election in 18 months, but will remain in the role until then.
If a by-election is caused, there's at least $500,000 to elect a new mayor, and then there may well be a need for an election of a councillor.
Lauren Kelly, NBN News. This swimmer had Beresfield Pool to himself this afternoon, but according to Newcastle Council, that doesn't happen often. Since last September, there's been an influx of people through the turnstiles.
We've seen 15 schools using the pool, 12 school carnivals, and the reduction in entry fee, I believe, has been really positive for Beresfield Pool.
The fee was slashed from $4.90 to $2.80 for adults. It came after community outrage when the pool faced closure and council failed to lease the facility.
They had very good reason to make sure they fought very hard to make sure they keep their pool at Beresfield open. They were the ones that originally fundraised and built the pool.
Council's 4 other pools, Mayfield, Wallsend, Stockton and Lambton, were leased to Lane 4 Aquatics, but visitor numbers there are yet to be finalised. Despite higher entry fees, some patrons say they're happy with what's on offer.
I'm finding that the staff are pretty friendly and the pool's nice and open still. I buy a 10 pass, so I find that easier and a bit more compromisable, I guess, than buying it every time I go in.
And the Lord Mayor says Lambton could soon become a year-round centre.
Lambton is the best place to have that situated. It would mean that we'd have to get state and federal funding, but we have to have a project that's ready to go.
A feasibility study will be submitted to Council later this year. Lauren Kelly, NBN News.
He's warmed the bench for Newcastle twice without seeing game time, so Michael Kantorowski could be forgiven for thinking his time would never come. That all changed against the Victory.
I always had it in the back of my mind, maybe I'd always be just like a squad player just to get the experience. But everyone was saying third time's a charm, you probably get on, and I did, which is great.
The 19-year-old had been enjoying simply being part of the squad alongside older brother Ben.
A couple of times I've kicked him at training and we get home a bit of banter, but that's about it.
Unfortunately, Ben was ruled out of the Melbourne game through injury, but he still provided moral support.
Before the game, he sent me a message just saying, be yourself, just stay calm, don't get too nervous, do your thing, and I was like, thanks.
The Jets are now preparing to host Sydney FC on Friday, keen to finish a horror season on a winning note. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Sandeep Singh is so famous in India, Bollywood has decided to immortalise him in a feature film.
Everywhere we go down the streets, he's being asked for photos and autographs or kiss my baby, things like that. But he's a really down-to-earth guy. That's the best part about him. He's got time for a lot of people he's never even met.
For the past 2 days, Singh and his Indian Premier League teammate Simon Orchard have gained a host of new fans here. Singh scored 3 trademark goals for Wests against Orchard's hometown club Maitland yesterday.
He's still one of the best drag flickers going around. I think he could still easily play for India. Hasn't got a lot of opportunities the last couple of years, but he's still quite young. He's 28 years old. He's still got a lot of hockey in him, and hopefully he can get back in there.
In 10 years, I played more than 200 caps, and I scored more than 170 goals. I played 2 Olympics, 2 Champions Trophy, World Cup, Commonwealth Games.
This morning, the 2 internationals were passing on their expertise to the best young players in the Hunter. Orchard is enjoying a short break from his duties with the Kookaburras. But his push for the Rio Olympics is just about to ramp up.
We've got a tournament in Hobart in a couple of weeks, so I'll be off down there playing some hockey again for Australia. Our big tournament's in Belgium in the middle of the year. We go to the World League semi-finals, which is a new sort of format which only happened a couple of years ago. Big tournament for us, that qualifies us for the Olympics if we play really well.
It's hoped Singh will return later in the year. For now, he's got other things on his mind.
I'm straight away from here going to India back and looking forward to make my movie.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
It's a disturbing scene, a group of youths punching and kicking a 42-year-old father and pinning him to the ground. His frightened daughter can be heard screaming. It's alleged she was also viciously attacked. 13-year-old Kiara Ratchich was still shaken today, but happy to have the support of her friends.
I was scared and shocked. I didn't really know what to do because it was just unexpected.
She'd been at the movies on Sunday night at Charlestown Square when she was allegedly sent threatening text messages. Her father Tibor arrived to take her home, but says they became targeted outside.
There was a bit of pushing and shoving going on, and then pretty much that's all I remember. Next minute there was just like I heard of him on top of me. I was basically protecting my head and my body from the kicks.
He has suspected broken ribs while his phone and wallet were allegedly stolen. His daughter has cuts and bruises.
I was just standing there like screaming like what's happening, and then the girl came up from behind me. She like fisted me in the jaw and then in the stomach and then pulled my hair.
Both are appalled that someone filmed the incident. The video then surfaced online. Mr Ratchich believes security should be stepped up in the area and says it's a warning to other parents.
It's a bit worrying, you know, to see kids that age actually be so violent.
Charlestown Square management says its security responded quickly, adding it's an isolated incident. Late today, police made an arrest.
Lake Macquarie detectives are speaking with a 15-year-old male at the Charlestown Police Station who's assisting us with our inquiries. That male person will be subject of the Young Offenders Act.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
This is the telemedicine system that will effectively put the best neonatal specialists at the John Hunter Children's Hospital in the room with midwives at Belmont's Birthing Centre.
We're always better if we use all our senses. And it's good for us to be able to see a baby because we can tell things which really are very difficult to describe.
And the process to start a potentially life-saving procedure is simple. The midwife turns the link on to make contact with the Children's Hospital, and from a computer there, a specialist logs into the camera and controls it.
So we can actually focus it to certain parts of the baby. We can actually magnify parts of the baby as well to really get a good impression of what is occurring, and that will then change the advice we're providing to the midwives that are providing that essential resuscitation.
Belmont's midwifery unit manager, Jane Crosby, says thankfully it will probably only be used 2 or 3 times a year, but when it is, it will be invaluable.
I think it will be wonderful to have that reassurance and support that the camera will offer.
It's all part of Variety's Vision for Life program that's partially funded by the Newcastle Permanent Charitable Foundation.
Our hope is to put this system into all the hospitals that need it throughout New South Wales. 13 units have gone in so far, and we're hoping to roll this out across many more hospitals.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
Once a quiet end of town, this stretch of King Street is coming alive with new restaurants and cafes.
It's just a part of town that's been a little bit neglected for a while, right in the heart of the city, and yeah, it's exciting times.
A year in the making, Foghorn Brewhouse and Restaurant opens tonight in the 1930s industrial building believed to be a former Closter Ford workshop. The finishing touches were being added earlier today. It has a 250-seat capacity and an 1,800-litre on-site brewery with 17 beers on tap.
We're taking, a building that's been empty in Newcastle, in a part of King Street that's been, not much has been happening here for a while, and we're part of the revitalisation of it.
King Street also now boasts an Ethiopian restaurant, new coffee shops and the revamped Lucky Hotel nearby. Napoli Centrale is also serving up Italian, and its owners are happy to have made the move to this part of Newcastle. Pizzas are cooked using a wood-fired oven, hand-built in Naples.
All of a sudden in 1 year start popping up restaurant and place. We're very happy about it because more people on the streets.
Just gives people other options, different entertainment options, and part of Newcastle becoming a more diverse and interesting city.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
I believe the RSL will look after them long after I'm gone. It's the best place for them to be.
I can't thank them enough for giving to the RSL to honour and keep them for the future.
This species can actually hear bugs and insects underneath the ground. That's how sensitive their hearing is.
Back at training after the disappointing loss to the Sharks, Rick Stone admits his team needs to step up for Sunday's clash with the Eels after what he describes as 2 poor weeks.
It was the errors, the 14 errors, that really sort of sunk us on the weekend, definitely, and definitely our last plays in our kicking game weren't good enough. So, all we can do is put our head down, work hard on that, challenge our halves about what position they get in and how they execute each particular kick.
In positive news, Stone expects Jared Mullen and Tarek Sims to return to training on Thursday after suffering minor shoulder injuries. But the outlook isn't good for Robbie Rocco, who continues to battle a back injury.
We're hoping he might have been a chance, and he's had that 10 days after the quarter zone, but he's been referred back to the specialist, and he's getting some pain in a few different areas now. So we're still tracking, I suppose, the symptoms and trying to find out get some sort of diagnosis.
Meanwhile, the signing of Dane Gagai for a further 2 years is being described as a coup for the club. Gagai admits choosing between the Broncos and Knights was among the toughest decisions he's had to make.
I'm enjoying the footy I'm playing and the group that I'm playing with, so
I guess a lot of it had to do with that, but at the end of the day, it just come down to where I saw my future, and I saw that here.
Renee Feder, NBN News. Fresh from a 4-3 victory over Sydney, the North Stars are feeling good about facing the Bears again in the Wilson Cup final.
We just outplayed them, and that's what we have to do again. We just got to outplay them. We just got to get on them. We're going to play to our systems and our style of hockey, and I'm pretty sure that's what's going to get us through.
The North Stars also have plenty to prove. They've never won the pre-season 4-team tournament and missed out after making the final last year.
We've been national champions, we've been league champions, and we've never won this internal championship we play, and it's just one that keeps getting away from us.
Ray Sheffield will again be at the helm as captain, but the side will be without defender Robert Malloy and goalkeeper Josh Brokeman due to the World Championships in Iceland. Despite their absence, Gary Doré says the team will still be strong.
Hayden Sheard is probably the top scorer in the competition, second year with the North Stars. Patton Aiden, Central Coast boy Shane Southwood, and then of course our stars, Brian Bales. He'll certainly be there, and he wants to win this one real bad.
The final gets underway at 5 p.m. on Saturday at Hunter Ice Skating Stadium. Renee Feder, NBN News.
Developer Braden Johnson says it's full steam ahead for Trinity Point, an ambitious and controversial project that would see this land at Morisset Park completely transformed.
Trinity Point is a lifestyle marina village on the shores of Lake Macquarie, where it should be what Circular Quay is to Sydney. This is for Lake Macquarie.
The Planning Assessment Commission yesterday approved updated concept plans for the development, which includes 250 tourism and residential apartments, a hotel, restaurant, conference centre and 188 berth marina.
This approval falls in line with our next processes to allow us to get DA consent right across the site and start construction.
Getting the $388 million project to this point has not been easy. In 2011, the Johnson Property Group went into administration and all work here essentially ceased. But with these latest approvals, the group now hopes to start construction here in September. But not everyone's pleased, with some residents questioning the approval process.
I don't think that there's been an adequate investigation. The local residents' concerns have not been addressed.
Lake Macquarie MP Greg Piper says he thinks it's premature to say it's all systems go for the development overall, as some components are still to be considered by the council and the Joint Regional Planning Panel, and that there will be other issues such as road capacity that need to be considered at that stage. Madeline McKell, NBN News.
These firefighters are literally at the top of their game. Trained in the specialist area of vertical rescues, they possess skills which come in handy in places like Newcastle.
Because we're here on the coast at Newcastle, we got all the sea cliffs, so you always hear around the place where people have fallen or rock fishermen, stuff like that. They can get access if there's no access.
Today those skills were put into practice inside the station. Newcastle firefighters took part in a new training program designed to bring them up to speed on equipment that's being rolled out across the state.
What it does is it's given them an upgrade of the skills they already possess. So what we've done is we've got some new equipment and that will make their job a lot more easier.
Meanwhile, Fire and Rescue New South Wales is about to launch a campaign to recruit permanent firefighters. It's calling for fit and healthy people to join the organisation, especially young women. Inspector Peter Nyers says it can be a physically demanding job, but also very rewarding.
There's a lot of training when needed, and we have to do a job. You know, we get a lot of satisfaction from doing it well.
Applications open on May 4. Renee Feder, NBN News.
Mortels is one of the oldest, most successful Ugg boot manufacturers in the world. Step inside the company's new home at Thornton and it's easy to see why. Whether you're after the classic Ugg or something a bit fancier, maybe even a sneaker, they're all up for grabs, even boot bling. Each year, 35,000 pairs of Uggs walk out the door, and due to demand, the business needed a bigger base. It's a testament to the hard work of 3 generations of the Mortel family.
I love my Ugg boots.
My father was one of the first to ever make Ugg boots in the world, and so the history is long. We fought the Americans 10 or so years ago to keep the word Ugg as a generic in Australia, and we're very happy to have won.
The building isn't yet complete, with work still underway on a museum and cafe, while in the coming weeks the public will be invited to see the journey of the Ugg, from factory to foot.
We wanted to do tours so that we could show people how our Ugg boots are made. We do things that are uniquely different from everybody in the industry, and on the tour we can physically show people.
While Mortels is known for its Ugg boots, that's not all that's on offer. You can literally be dressed from head to toe. The new factory will be officially opened in July. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
Every time I accelerated or put my foot on the throttle, the monster truck guy dived across me to kill switch. And then I thought, I'm going to head straight and try and drive over these cars. And he just started panicking.
It's rare to see her on the sidelines, but today Emily Van Egmond took some time out to speak to young footballers vying for selection in the emerging Jets.
It wasn't too long ago that I was in their shoes sitting there, and we had the likes of Cheryl Salisbury standing there and talking to myself, and I remember back then as a 15-year-old that I really looked up to her, still do look up to her. She's probably my #1 role model.
The 21-year-old W League captain has just returned to Newcastle from a 7-week tour of Europe with the Matildas. The team took part in training camps and international friendlies, all in preparation for the World Cup.
We started off in Cyprus, in the Cyprus Cup, and I think we ended up coming 5th, which was an improvement from the previous year. We had some good opposition, the likes of England, Holland and Finland.
She's now enjoying a break at home, but not for long. Van Egmond heads to Canberra for another training camp with the national squad on Monday. She says she's feeling good about her performance so far.
You can always look to improve on certain areas in your game, but on a whole, I feel like I'm doing okay at the moment. Quite consistent in my performances, which is a good thing.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
No challenge is too big for Elibarna's John Demandle. He's preparing to take on what could well be one of the world's most gruelling sporting events, Australia's very first Ultraman. He's 54 years old and legally blind.
It's just a challenge to say I've done that, because I like just participating in everything, and to have a title of, okay, Ultraman, Iron Man, I've done everything. And there's everything that's available in the world apart from an Ultraman.
Modelled on events overseas, the Noosa Ultraman will feature a 10-kilometre swim, 420-kilometre bike ride and 84-kilometre marathon. Because Demandle has just 15% of what's considered regular sight, he'll be guided by a team of friends, including Alistair Trendle, who he competed with last year in the Australian paracycling titles.
John said that he had this crazy event that he wanted to compete in and needed somebody to pilot the tandem for him. So I looked at the distances and thought, well, what a great opportunity that is to A, to be a part of the event, and B, to help John as well.
Demandle has spent the past 18 months training for the Ultraman, and he hopes to secure the only title the event offers, that of finisher.
I'm not quite sure if any other visually impaired person in the world has ever done it, so potentially I could be the first in the world to do it.
Madeline McKell, NBN News. Thick smoke billowed from the Mayfield home just after 2 p.m. Neighbour Gavipon Panaraj was the first to notice something was going terribly wrong.
First thing I saw was a large column of just black smoke, and at that point the construction workers over here, they ran over as well, and we all started banging on the windows. One guy actually, I think he went through the front door, and as I was saying, another went around the side, saw that there was gas bottles, and so we all sort of vacated the premises.
Emergency services say that while they received multiple phone calls about the fire, all of those calls claimed that there was nobody inside the burning building. It wasn't until the fire was extinguished and firefighters got access to the house that they discovered a body in the lounge room. Now, it's still early days and formal identification is yet to take place, but it is believed that the body belonged to a man aged in his 50s who had been living at the property. The tragedy shocking seasoned officers.
These circumstances are always confronting for emergency services, particularly the fireys. They come to save lives, and it's always a gut blow when they, find that they've been unsuccessful and someone has passed away.
Firefighters took around half an hour to extinguish the blaze. A crime scene was established late this afternoon. Forensic police and a fire investigation unit will now work through the night to determine the cause of the fire.
We've got fire investigation coming from Sydney, plus this accelerant detecting dog that's coming up as well.
Madeline McKell, NBN News. Belinda Lambert's dream of being a stay-at-home mum to daughter Harlow has come crashing down. She's desperately trying to re-enter the workforce after her husband was made redundant at the start of the year.
We definitely didn't think we would be here. We were trying very hard to get ahead, so it's very upsetting and disheartening to apply every day for jobs and not get anything out of it.
More than 30,000 Hunter residents are looking for work, and it seems no one is safe in the region's chronic job shortage. Until 2012, 55-year-old Peter was a businessman earning $400,000 a year. After selling his company, he says he's been knocked back from 150 jobs purely because of his age.
I would easily be prepared to go back to work for $50,000 or $60,000 a year, which is these days is way below the average wage. I'm very willing to do that, but you can't get the job, you can't get the interview, you can't get past first base. I've even been knocked back by Bunnings.
Charities are becoming overwhelmed with calls for help.
The people that are contacting the Salvation Army are well skilled, they're well qualified, they are desirous to find work, they are job ready. But as they're applying for work, nothing is coming off for them.
Newcastle MP Sharon Claydon is calling on the federal government to outline a plan to boost jobs when it hands down the budget.
Come clean with the Australian people about their plan to retain Australian jobs and Australian industry.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
It's scenes like this police are fed up with, and they're taking action. Officers say the number of dangerous driving offences in Newcastle continues to rise. But now they're armed with a new weapon to fight the problem, the power to deregister vehicles.
We've been conducting operations over the years, but on this occasion we intend to contact registered owners of the vehicles and even in some cases target the parents of vehicles that are owned by families and used by younger people in the family.
A recent police operation at one hotspot revealed more than 40% of the cars were registered to the driver's parents, while 45% of those behind the wheel were either on a learner or provisional licence.
It's here at Kooragang Island that police will be really cracking down on drivers doing the wrong thing, and it's not just those behind the wheel that they have in their sights.
The crowd behaviour is enticing people to conducting the dangerous driving activity. In some of the locations it's actually private property, so we'll be using trespass legislation if we can to deter those people coming. Some years ago we had a girl in the crowd observing this behaviour and a car veered off the road and crashed into her and she ended up with a broken pelvis.
Police also hold safety fears for the wider public.
Roads are being damaged and made dangerous with oil tipped over them. Rubbish is being left behind at the areas where this behaviour is being conducted and people's lives are actually being put at risk.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
Celebrations to mark a milestone spilling onto the streets. It's been half a century since the University of Newcastle was founded, from humble beginnings with just 1,700 students to a global institution boasting more than 40,000 enrolments. Dr. Bernie Curran was a student back when it all began in 1965.
I know what it was like then, and to see what the university is now after 50 years, it's fabulous to be here and to see just actually how much it's grown, how much it's developed.
Today, new graduates joined university staff in recognising that success, taking part in a march from Honeysuckle to Wheeler Place.
It's been very rewarding, and to round it off with the 50-year anniversary has it's just finished things off really nicely.
It's really special. I mean, because I did a Bachelor of Science, I graduated last year at the university. So to get to do it again this year, out with the big parade, it's absolutely fantastic.
Those taking part today also looking to the institution's future and its new CBD campus.
You only have to go out to the campus. You only have to come in here and have a look at what's happening in town. You only have to hear the discussions to know that everything is alive with the future.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
For Corey Newman, exercise is a way of life. 3 years ago, she created Run With a Story, a charity event that channels her energy and passion into helping those doing it tough. People like Matt Story, who received $25,000 for life-saving medical treatment, while brothers Jordan and Logan Weir have also benefited. They're the only 2 children in Australia suffering from a rare genetic disorder.
Last year we raised $44,000 conglomerately for the boys and actually managed to build the airtight dustproof room that they needed to play in, which is quite exciting.
This time around, the Reeves family has been chosen to benefit from the run. In 2013, Hayley, mum to 3-year-old Jade, was diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer. Then, a year later, she learned her precious daughter had a brain tumour.
They've removed 95% of the tumour and it's just the last 5% that they're trying to get. She still is quite unwell and the ramifications of the tumour are quite unknown.
So far, 150 people have signed up to tackle the fundraising run, which will start at Belmont in Lake Macquarie on the 3rd of May. And if the full 60-kilometre stretch sounds too tough, there are a range of other distances to choose from. Every step will help provide life-changing support.
It will help take the stress off the family unit because the parents can't work at this point in time and they need to care for both Jade and Hayley as they work through their medical issues. So the money raised will really help them as a family unit to be able to spend time together and also to pay the medical bills.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
Having scored a combined 6 points in rain-affected games against the Dragons and Sharks, questions are being asked about Newcastle's attack.
It's been hard. We haven't really played any good football in the wet. And every time we train, it's always dry. So, we haven't adjusted to the wet conditions.
Tyrone Roberts admits he and Jared Mullen need stronger communication against the Eels and better last tackle options.
We haven't really got any repeat sets this year, and we need to build that pressure and get that back in our game.
Following the 2 losses, coach Rick Stone put the whole team on notice, but it appears he'll stick with the same squad for now, which includes Sione Matautia.
As far as I know, same team as last week, same roles as last week. So come off the bench and play fullback, and Gids and Closey will interchange together. So as far as I know, that's the plan.
While the rep season is about to kick off, Matautia is more concerned about the Knights than the Kangaroos.
I'm not too sure if I get a run, but that's all good. I'm still here playing for my club, and if I do get a country jersey, it would be good, and hopefully I can get a crack at that. If not, then play every weekend here.
Despite losing a host of high-profile players in the off-season, Cessnock's 2015 squad had enough class to overcome Wests in round 1. Having led the Rosellas to 3 straight titles, new Goanna's mentor Craig Miller knows there's a danger of complacency in his camp following the win.
I need to make sure my troops are back on the job. We trained very well on Tuesday night. I was very happy with our intensity on Tuesday night, so hopefully we've got over that excitement of round 1.
Replacing the Brown brothers Riley and Joel, Cessnock halves Liam Foran and Willie Hedder impressed on debut.
They've never played together. Liam only had 1 training session with Willie, and I really thought they both went really well.
The Pickers lost more than they gained in the off-season. With the league's club in financial trouble, Maitland has dipped into its powerful junior ranks.
funding was an issue for us. That was only sort of sorted out with a takeover in the last 3 weeks. So we're going to be basically young, but I'm hopeful we'll be competitive. I think the boys showed a bit of ticker on Sunday.
That ticker helped Maitland score a fighting win over Central.
Any talk of Maitland rebuilding and being in the doldrum, I don't think under Noel Dent that'll ever happen. I'm sure he's there to win everything he can.
Coach Noel Dent says his side needs to improve dramatically to match it with Cessnock.
I said 3 weeks ago my top 3 and they were certainly amongst them.
Also this weekend, Curry will honour Mick Campton's 200 first grade games before the Bulldogs face Lakes, while the Scorpions will pay tribute to Blake Gallen prior to the clash with Central, honouring his 100 games in the top grade.